My name is Harper Blake. Today I turn 30. I'm standing completely alone in the private lakefront lodge I rented in Door County, Wisconsin. 18 empty chairs arranged around a crackling fire. $14,000 worth of catered food sitting untouched on the table. Because I invited exactly 18 people. My entire family. My phone lights up. First text from my younger sister. We're in Jackson Hole. Forgot about your party. Oops. 3 seconds later, group photo. All 18 of them smiling in front of the Four Seasons. My mum's caption underneath. Your $22,000 in savings paid for first-class flights and the presidential suite. Love you, sweetie. I open my banking app. Available balance, $53. Hundreds of transactions labeled family emergency. Every single cent, gone. Snow falls outside the massive windows. 18 empty chairs staring back at me. 18 family members who chose Wyoming over me. I look around the silent room. Whisper the one word that started everything. Perfect. If your own family ever drained your bank account and abandoned you on the most important day of your life, smash that subscribe button right now. Tell me in the comments how you made them pay. Let's get this to 100K likes. Because you already know they're about to lose everything. 5 months earlier, I still believed family was everything. I'd always been the fixer, the responsible one. When the housing crash hit Northern Illinois and construction companies started folding left and right, my parents' business, Blake & Sons Construction, barely survived. My mother, Patricia Blake, and my father, Robert Blake, kept the logo on their trucks shiny, kept the office lights on, but behind closed doors, they were drowning in $800,000 of debt they never mentioned over dinner. They smiled, asked about my job, acted like everything was fine. My younger sister, Riley Blake, 24, had moved back home after her second business venture collapsed. Spent mornings sleeping in, evenings glued to her phone in the basement. My cousin, Mia Torres, 27, had shown up with one suitcase right after college. Just for a few months, she'd promised. 7 years later, she still had the guest bedroom, still paid 0 rent. My boyfriend, Ethan, kept dropping hints about engagement rings and forever plans. The remaining 12 invitations went to aunts, uncles, and grandparents who'd watched me grow up. 18 people total. That was my whole world. For 9 straight years, I'd worked as a senior operations manager for one of the biggest commercial developers in Chicago's northwest suburbs. Salary started at $85, climbed to $124. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, drove a paid-off Toyota, funneled every bonus into a high-yield savings account. By April, it finally hit $22,000. Exactly. That money had one purpose: buying back the 42 acres of pristine lakefront property my grandfather left me in his will. The deed was held in a family trust my parents controlled, but I had the cash ready, a lawyer on standby. My 30th birthday was going to be the day I claimed ownership, literally and symbolically. About 20 months earlier, Mom had asked almost casually if I could add Riley as an authorized user on my checking account, just for emergencies. A few months after that, she asked if Mia could be added to my credit card, so she can grab things for the house when I'm tied up with clients. Both times, I said yes without hesitation. Family helps family, right? I even felt good about it. So when I found the perfect private lodge on the shores of Lake Michigan, I didn't think twice. The listing called it exclusive reservation, meaning the entire property would be ours alone for the night. I paid $14,000 up front, catered dinner, premium open bar, live acoustic music, string lights over the frozen water, the works. I mailed 18 thick ivory envelopes with hand-calligraphed addresses, no plus ones, no co-workers, no college friends, just the 18 people who were supposed to love me most. Ethan could barely contain himself, kept saying the night would be life-changing, asked what kind of flowers I wanted for the rest of our lives. Riley sent memes about turning 30, offered to create the Spotify playlist. Mia volunteered to handle decorations, promised it would be Pinterest perfect. Mom and Dad told everyone how proud they were of their dependable oldest daughter. My grandmother called to confirm they'd drive up from Rockford no matter the weather. Every single reply was an excited yes. I pictured it perfectly. Walking into that lodge with snow falling, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking frozen water, announcing the land was finally mine, Ethan dropping to one knee, champagne toasts, the whole family cheering. I'd worked 9 years for that moment. I'd handed out debit cards and credit cards like candy because I trusted them. I'd saved every overtime hour, skipped vacations, ate ramen so I could hit that $22,000 mark. What I never pictured was the slow, steady drip of small transactions I never noticed. 300 here for gas, 500 there for groceries, 900 labeled family emergency. I never pictured my own mother approving every single one. I never pictured my sister and cousin treating my accounts like their personal piggy bank while hugging me at Sunday dinners. And I definitely never pictured that the night I planned to claim my future would become the night I realized my past had already been stolen, piece by piece, by the same 18 people I was about to celebrate with. But that realization was still 5 months away. Back then, I was still the daughter who believed blood meant loyalty. Asterisk, asterisk, the betrayal. Asterisk, asterisk. That night, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I was still holding a glass of champagne no one would ever drink when the first alert flashed across my screen. 8:52 p.m. Courtesy text from my bank. A charge of $2,600 had just posted at the Four Seasons Jackson Hole, then another for $2,100, then $3,400, all from the same credit card I'd added Mia to as an authorized user. Within 7 minutes, the total hit $13,200 and kept climbing. I opened the banking app with shaking hands. The savings account I'd watched grow for 9 years now read $53. $53. I scrolled up through 30 months of transactions I'd never authorized, hundreds of small debits ranging from $250 to $950 each, labeled family emergency or groceries or utilities. Every single one initiated by the debit card I'd given Riley. The math was brutal. Together, they drained exactly $21,947 before tonight's Wyoming shopping spree pushed everything into the open. My stomach dropped so hard I had to sit on the cold stone floor. The fire crackled beside me, but I couldn't feel the heat. I called the fraud hotline immediately. The agent walked me through every step while charges kept appearing in real time. She confirmed the credit card purchases were coming from Wyoming. The debit withdrawals matched the card in Riley's wallet. She warned me that until the investigation closed, I was still legally responsible for every dollar, but she could freeze everything right then. At 1:27 a.m., she killed every card, revoked every authorized user, locked both accounts solid. While I was still on hold with customer service, another text slid in. From Ethan. He wrote that Riley had called him 2 hours earlier, claimed the party was cancelled because of a sudden family emergency, something about Dad being rushed to urgent care. Ethan had panicked, turned his car around halfway to Door County. Spent the last 3 hours trying to reach my parents. He apologized over and over, asked if he should still drive up, promised he'd be there no matter how late. I stared at that message until the words blurred, set the phone face down on the table. The lodge rental company had already left. The caterers had cleared out after setup because I'd paid extra for complete privacy. The food sat under silver domes, growing colder by the minute. I walked through the circle of 18 place settings, running my fingers across the name cards I'd handwritten myself. Every seat was tagged with a relative who was at that exact moment somewhere in Wyoming spending money that no longer existed. I poured the untouched champagne down the sink, watched it swirl away. Then I opened the banking app one more time, took screenshots of every fraudulent transaction, every Wyoming charge, every family emergency withdrawal stretching back 30 months, emailed the files to myself with password protection, backed them up to the cloud. Evidence first, emotions later. By 3 a.m, the alerts finally stopped. The damage was complete. $22,000 of my life had vanished into first-class tickets, luxury suites, and whatever else 18 people decided they deserved more than I did. I turned off all the lights, left the untouched dinner exactly where it was, drove south through the snow in total silence. I had no idea yet how deep the theft actually went. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The next move was mine. Asterisk, asterisk, the discovery, asterisk, asterisk. 4 hours later, I pulled into the driveway of my parents' quiet street in Evanston. The house was dark except for the porch light they always left on for Riley. I still had the spare key on my ring, same one I'd carried since high school. I let myself in without a sound, slipped off my boots in the entryway, walked straight to Dad's office at the back of the house. Familiar smell of leather and old books hit me as I closed the door. Dad kept the floor safe behind the bottom shelf of his bookcase. I'd watched him open it 100 times growing up. Birth certificates, passports, the deed to the beach house we lost in the recession. I knelt down, spun the dial to the combination I'd known since I was 12, Mum's birthday. The heavy door clicked open. First folder on top was labelled Blake and Sons Bank Documents. Inside were loan papers dated 19 months earlier. I flipped to the collateral page, felt the air leave my lungs. The 42 acres my grandfather left me had been pledged as security for an $850,000 commercial line of credit. My parents had signed as trustees. The bank could foreclose the moment the company missed another payment. I kept digging. Beneath the loan files sat a thick folder marked Grandfather Trust, Northern Trust Company. I pulled out the original trust agreement, the one I'd only ever seen summaries of. Page 14 contained the clause I'd never been told about. An irrevocable living trust, administered by Northern Trust Company as corporate trustee. The document stated in plain language that on the exact date I turned 30, if the trustee received credible evidence of misuse or self-dealing by any prior fiduciary, full, legal, and beneficial ownership would vest immediately and automatically in me, without requiring court approval or additional signatures. All my parents had to do was keep their hands off the land until today. They hadn't. I spread everything across the carpet. Mortgage papers showing quarterly interest-only payments they could no longer afford. Property tax records proving they'd claimed the land as a primary business asset for 7 straight years to lower corporate taxes. Annual trust statements addressed only to them, never once mentioning the anti-abuse provision. Every page was another nail. I took my phone, photographed each document in high resolution, front and back, using the desk lamp for light, 237 pictures in total. Uploaded them instantly to an encrypted cloud folder. Emailed the link to a new Gmail account I'd created on the drive down, one my family had never seen. Then I put everything back, exactly as I found it. Closed the safe, slid the shelf back. Before leaving the office, I opened the filing cabinet, pulled the last 7 years of corporate tax returns. The Schedule C forms listed the 42 acres as company-owned real estate used for future development, allowing them to deduct property taxes and depreciation they were never entitled to take. Total tax benefit came to well over $180,000. I photographed those too. Stood in the dark hallway for a moment, listening to the grandfather clock tick. Same clock that had counted every Christmas morning, every graduation party, every Sunday dinner. It sounded different now. I walked out the way I came in, locked the door behind me, drove back north through sleeping towns. By the time the sun rose over the frozen lake, I'd already forwarded the entire package to the trust officer at Northern Trust with a single sentence. Please review for possible breach of fiduciary duty. Beneficiary turned 30 today. I didn't cry, didn't call anyone, simply watched the road and waited for the bank to do what it was legally required to do the moment it saw the evidence. Asterisk, asterisk, the reckoning, asterisk, asterisk. 4 days later, my phone became a battlefield of Wyoming area codes. I'd just poured my second cup of coffee in the tiny studio when the first call rang through, speaker already on at the other end. A calm female voice introduced herself as Jennifer Martinez, front desk manager at the Four Seasons Jackson Hole. She apologized for the disturbance, asked if I was the primary card holder for the Blake Torres reservation, 18 guests, presidential suite and 2 adjoining rooms. Current balance, $28,700, due immediately. Before I could respond, the phone was clearly passed around. Suddenly, 18 voices exploded at once. Riley was crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Harper, please. They're holding our IDs. They won't let us check out. Mom grabbed the phone next. Voice cracked the second she spoke my name, begging that the kids are freezing, and the hotel threatened to call local police if someone didn't pay right now. Dad tried taking over, using the same measured tone he used when clients were late on invoices, saying we could all sit down like adults when they got home and work everything out. Mia started screaming over him that I was psychotic and vindictive, that she had spa appointments pending, and the front desk had cut off room service. In the background, my Aunt Karen asking if anyone had Apple Pay, Uncle Mike yelling that this was fraud and they should call the cops on me instead. Grandma trying to calm everyone down by offering to put it on her emergency card that definitely didn't have $28,000 available. Someone dropped the phone. It clattered on marble. The manager came back on, polite but firm. Local authorities were en route. The entire party would be escorted to the lobby holding area until the bill was settled in full. Another cousin I hadn't spoken to in 4 years snatched the phone, pleaded that they had small children with them, below zero weather outside. Then Mum again, hysterical now, promising on her life they'd pay every penny back if I'd just wire the money before police arrived. Dad tried one last time, voice shaking with rage and fear, reminding me that blood is thicker than money, that no daughter destroys her own parents in public like this. I waited for the smallest gap in the chaos, spoke clearly into the storm. 4 days ago, Northern Trust received documented proof of fiduciary breach. The trust vested at midnight on my 30th birthday. The 42 acres are mine, free and clear. The $850,000 loan secured by that land is now in default. Foreclosure proceedings begin in 30 days. Nothing you charge in Wyoming changes the math. Dead silence for 3 full seconds, long enough for me to hear the lobby fireplace crackling. Then the screaming started again, louder this time. Riley wailed that she was sorry, would get 4 jobs if she had to. Mia called me every name she could think of. Mum dissolved into sobs that sounded nothing like the woman who raised me. Dad's voice broke completely when he realized the business was gone too. The manager cleared her throat, informed me that time was up. Either payment arrived within the hour, or guests would be removed to a public area while the matter was handed to law enforcement. I said, "Thank you for the information," ended the call, blocked every single number that had appeared on my screen. 18 in total, plus the hotel's direct line. Texts immediately flooded in. Apologies, threats, Bible verses from Grandma, screenshots of the hotel bill, a voice memo of Mum crying in a bathroom. I didn't open a single one. One by one, I deleted and blocked, until the phone finally went silent. I poured the rest of the coffee down the sink, opened a new account at a credit union 2 towns over, transferred the $53 that were left. Then I turned the phone off, pulled the SIM card, slid it into an envelope I'd mail to myself later. The chaos on the other end of that call lasted maybe 7 minutes. The consequences would last them the rest of their lives. Asterisk, asterisk, the lawsuit, asterisk, asterisk. 2 weeks later, I sat across from my attorney, Natalie Ross, in her Chicago office. Natalie had handled my grandfather's estate years earlier. She already knew every detail of the trust. I slid the thick folder of photographs and tax returns across her desk, watched her eyebrows rise higher with every page. When she finished, she leaned back, removed her reading glasses, said the 4 words I'd been waiting to hear: "We file today." That same afternoon, we filed a civil complaint in Cook County Circuit Court against Mom, Dad, Riley, and Mia for breach of fiduciary duty, conversion, and fraud. The claimed damages were simple: every dollar they'd taken from my accounts, plus 7 years of improper tax benefits on the 42 acres. Natalie also prepared and mailed a Form 211 whistleblower submission to the IRS, reporting the fraudulent deductions, complete with copies of the corporate returns that listed the land as a business asset. The potential IRS penalty alone with interest and fraud charges would exceed $270,000. 4 days after filing, Northern Trust sent formal notice of default to Blake & Sons Construction. The commercial loan was now unsecured, because the collateral had transferred to me the moment I turned 30. The bank exercised its right to accelerate the full $850,000 balance, demanded immediate repayment. Dad tried to negotiate an extension, but without the land to refinance against, no lender would touch them. Within 12 days, the bank petitioned for involuntary Chapter 7 bankruptcy on behalf of the company. A trustee was appointed. The office was padlocked. Every piece of equipment, from excavators to company trucks, was scheduled for auction. Mom and Dad received notice that their personal home, which they'd used as additional collateral on later loans, would be sold at sheriff's sale unless they filed personal bankruptcy as well. They chose the only option left, converted to Chapter 7 themselves. Riley lost the Audi she'd been driving. Payments came from the company account. Mia moved out of the guest room the day the moving trucks arrived to inventory the house. Mum spent hours on the phone with creditors, voice hoarse from explaining over and over that there was nothing left to take. Dad, aged 15 years in a month, the man who once closed million-dollar deals, now stood in line at the unemployment office, wearing the same jacket he'd owned since I was in middle school. Natalie kept me updated by email only. She forwarded the bankruptcy schedules that listed my claim as the largest unsecured debt, meaning I'd be first in line when whatever scraps remained were divided. She also sent the IRS acknowledgement letter, confirming they'd opened a civil fraud examination, requesting an interview with Mom and Dad within 30 days. I read every update on my laptop in the new apartment I'd leased under my name alone. Never answered the door when process servers delivered papers. Never picked up restricted numbers. Simply let them ring until voicemail filled and shut itself off. The silence on my side was absolute. Asterisk, asterisk. The trial, asterisk, asterisk. 10 months later, the civil trial finally began in Cook County Circuit Court. Natalie Ross walked me through the courthouse hallway one March morning, while sleet fell hard outside the tall windows. Mom, Dad, Riley, and Mia sat on the opposite bench with a public defender who looked barely older than Riley. None of them met my eyes when we passed. The case lasted 4 days. Natalie called only 2 witnesses, the trust officer from Northern Trust and an IRS revenue agent who'd completed the fraud examination. The bank officer testified that the land had vested in me the moment the abuse clause was triggered, that my parents had never disclosed the provision to the institution. The IRS agent laid out 7 years of Schedule C deductions, now classified as willful tax evasion. She placed the final penalty assessment at $224,000, plus interest, payable jointly by Mom and Dad. Natalie projected every bank statement, every family emergency withdrawal, every Wyoming charge on a large screen for the judge to see. The public defender tried arguing the money had been gifts, not theft. Natalie countered by showing the pattern. Small amounts taken slowly over 30 months, always labeled to avoid suspicion, always approved by Mom. The judge did not look convinced. On the second day, Riley took the stand, admitted she'd used the debit card whenever she needed cash, claimed she always intended to pay it back, eventually. Mia followed, insisted the credit card charges were for household expenses Mom had asked her to handle. When Natalie played the Four Seasons folio showing $13,200 in one weekend, Mia started crying. Said she thought the card had no limit because I was loaded. Mom spoke last. She wore the same grey coat she'd owned for 12 years, kept twisting a tissue in her hands, told the judge I was their only child who'd ever been responsible, that they'd only borrowed because the business was struggling. Ended by saying, no mother should have to sit in court against her own daughter. The courtroom stayed silent for a long moment. Dad never testified, just stared at the table the entire time. On the third morning, the judge returned with the ruling. He found Mom and Dad jointly and severally liable for $224,000 in compensatory and punitive damages, plus the full IRS penalty. Riley and Mia were each held jointly liable for $42,000 of the unauthorized charges. The judge noted that bankruptcy had discharged their ability to pay immediately, but the judgment would attach to any future earnings or assets for the next 20 years. That same afternoon, the sheriff posted the sale notice on the front door of the house in Evanston. The auction took place 6 weeks later on the courthouse steps. A young family from Highland Park bought it for far less than it was once worth. Mom and Dad had 30 days to vacate. Natalie texted me the final order while I was meeting with architects about the first cabin on my land. I read it once, saved the PDF, closed the file. I never went to the house to watch them leave. Never answered the single letter Mum mailed from a budget apartment complex in Des Plaines. Riley got a night shift job at a warehouse. Mia moved 4 hours away and changed her last name back to her mother's maiden name. Dad's delivery app rating dropped because he kept cancelling shifts. Mum started volunteering at a community kitchen, probably to eat. The family that once filled 18 chairs around my birthday table no longer existed in any form I recognised. Natalie filed the judgment liens the same week. Garnishments would start the moment any of them earned more than minimum wage. Some debts never go away. I framed the court order, hung it in the office of the first cabin I finished, not for revenge, just so I'd never forget what trusting blood had cost me. Asterisk, asterisk, 1 year later. Asterisk, asterisk. 1 year later, I celebrated my 31st birthday exactly where I belonged. The 42 acres now held 7 handcrafted lakefront cabins, each booked solid from April through November. First-year gross revenue hit $840,000, every penny earned by guests who had no idea what it took to build this place from ashes. I stood on the deck of the main cabin at sunset, glass of wine in hand, watching the water turn gold. I'd changed my phone number the week the judgment became final, sold the old apartment, bought a small house 15 minutes from the property, registered everything under the LLC that now owns the land. Not one of the 18 people who once called themselves, "My family has my address, my number, any way to find me." I made sure of it. Mom and Dad rent a studio above a dry cleaner in Des Plaines. Dad's delivery app account was suspended after too many cancelled shifts. Mom works the register at the same garden centre 4 days a week, volunteers at the community kitchen on weekends because the employee discount on damaged produce is the only way they eat fresh vegetables. Their combined social security barely covers rent. Riley lives in a basement apartment in Joliet, stocks shelves from midnight to 8, sleeps most of the daylight hours. The garnishment takes 25% of every paycheck before she ever sees it. Mia bounced between 4 different cities, now shares a duplex outside Rockford with a roommate who doesn't know her real last name. Her wages are garnished too. Neither of them has ever paid a single dollar toward the $42,000 they owe. The rest of the 18 scattered like leaves. Some tried reaching out through distant cousins or old neighbors. Every message went unread. Every envelope returned unopened. I erased them the way they tried to erase my future. I run the resort myself, with a small seasonal staff who call me boss, not daughter or sister or cousin. Guests leave 5-star reviews about the peace and quiet, about how the owner clearly loves this land. They have no idea the cabins are built on ground I had to take back with lawyers and court orders and years of silence. On my 31st birthday, I didn't light candles or make wishes. I walked the shoreline at dawn, boots crunching on frost, felt the weight of 31 years settle into something solid. The girl who once handed out debit cards because family asked nicely no longer exists. She died the night 18 empty chairs stared back at me. Asterisk, asterisk. Closing, asterisk, asterisk. They thought I'd forgive because I was the oldest daughter, the responsible one, the one who always fixed things. They thought blood guaranteed mercy. They were wrong about the person they raised. Some betrayals don't get second chances. Some debts are paid in full by never being allowed to forget what was taken. That's the story of how my family drained my bank account and abandoned me on my 30th birthday, and how I took everything back and built something they can never touch. If you stayed until the end, thank you for listening. This one was hard to tell, but it needed telling. Drop a comment, let me know. Have you ever had to cut someone out to protect yourself? Did you ever get justice the long way? I read every single one, and if this story hit close to home, share it. Someone out there needs to hear that saying no to family doesn't make you the villain. Sometimes it makes you the survivor. See you in the next one.